good shonen has the ability to push anime culture with their iconic power. Things like the Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z, Bankai from Bleach, and the hand signs from Naruto have had nerds all around the world embarrassing themselves in public. A lot of you didn't get bullied for liking anime, you were Naruto running through your school hallways. Jujutsu Kaisen, inspired by the shonen I named, has recently come to the forefront of shonen and has cemented its iconic power in anime, the Domain Expansion. It's cool, it rolls off the tongue easy, it's provocative, and it's sort of easy to understand amidst the very non-straightforward Jujutsu Kaisen power system. The domain expansions that we've seen in JJK show that they can be very unique and different from each other depending on how a character visualizes their technique. It's a very creative way of demonstrating a character's max power. And because of that, it made me think, what if other anime characters had domain expansions? That's what we're gonna figure out today. Today we are conceptualizing domain expansions for a couple of the Naruto characters that I've selected. Let's start off with our main guy, Naruto Uzumaki. So aside from Talk no Jutsu, which is his most powerful move, his primary jutsu are the Rasengan and the Shadow Clone Jutsu, to which until the tail end of the series, the two were used together. In order to perform a domain expansion, you gotta be able to visualize your curse energy. As someone who has created thousands of Shadow Clones, Naruto of all people should be able to visualize the domain that he wants to create pretty easily. If Naruto were to visualize his domain, the environment would be a sea of Naruto clones covering everything. I'm talking floor, walls, ceilings. It's a little creepy if you think about it, just a bunch of human bodies everywhere. And the person trapped inside of this domain would find it very difficult to move, as hands would be reaching out from the floor, grabbing their legs and holding them in place. And to seal the fate of somebody being trapped inside of this human meat domain, the air of the environment is the inside of a Rasen Shuriken. If you recall the first time Naruto used the Rasen Shuriken against Kakuzu, we saw how the inside of the jutsu had a bunch of wind blades cutting him inside of it. And after the jutsu, Kakuzu was out for the count, but his body was still intact. Well, a domain expansion amplifies the power of the user. So instead of just being cut up the way Kakuzu was, whoever is trapped inside of Naruto's domain would literally be sliced into pieces. It would be like Sukuna's malevolent shrine, but instead of getting cut into a couple of pieces, you're basically trapped inside of a paper shredder. We'll call this one Domain Expansion Kagebushin Rasen Shred. Although the first time Naruto would attempt to use his domain expansion, it would probably be overpowered by Kuruma's domain, kinda like how Mahito's domain was overtaken by Sukuna. So until Naruto got control of his chakra and mastered it, it would be a dangerous game for Naruto to even attempt a domain expansion. Alright, now let's talk about my favorite emo boy, Sasuke Uchiha. As you guys know, the Uchiha clan is one of the most powerful clans in the Naruto-verse. They possess the Sharingan, which is awakened by extreme stress. If that is the case, I should have had the Sharingan, bro. Once awakened, it grants heightened visual perception, as well as the ability to cast an illusion on an enemy. With the way that Sasuke has been using the Susanoo and his Mangekyo Sharingan for Genjutsu, he should also be able to visualize his domain with ease. The majority of Sasuke's character during the show was fueled by negative emotions. This is a high-key unhinged guy who spiraled into darkness. I mean, bro lost a fight with his best friend, and then 3 years later he was a domestic terrorist. Make it make sense. I think his domain should represent how unhinged and uncontrollable he is. Trapped inside, the user would find themselves in an unbreakable Susanoo dome, storming with lightning and black flames. And since for the whole show Sasuke was on a revenge arc, wanting everyone to feel the same pain that he did, taking someone out in a simple way wouldn't be enough for his character. A domain expansion like Infinity has the ability to change a target's perception of time, and we've seen the Mangekyo Sharingan be able to change the perception of time in Itachi Tsukiyomi. In Sasuke's domain, the victim would experience time slower than Sasuke. What is a couple seconds for Sasuke would be days, months, or even years for the victim, burning not only their bodies, but their souls as well. In lamest terms, this is basically an extravagant anime way for Sasuke to send somebody to hell. Yikes. We'll call this Domain Expansion Susanoo's Inferno. That one sounds a little cooler, right? Right? Yeah, that's hot. That's hot. Let's take it back to the early days of Naruto and discuss Haku. Haku's Keka Genkai was ice release. It gave him the ability to combine wind and water elements in order to create ice. His signature technique was the crystal ice mirror, which basically made mirrors of ice that surrounded the target and allowed Haku to move through mirrors in its own dimension. He would also throw ice needles at his target after surrounding them with mirrors. This is basically a domain expansion. The only thing that it needs is complete control. I mean, this technique got foiled when a one-tailed kid Naruto was able to crack one of the mirrors. Haku's domain expansion would just be a stronger version of his ice crystal mirror jutsu. Instead of 10 or so mirrors, there would be hundreds of mirrors that would disorientate the attacks of the person stuck inside of the domain. This way, it'd be way more difficult to discover where Haku actually is. And because of the amplification of Haku's power in his domain, the mirrors wouldn't just break from a strong point. And if one of the mirrors were to break, it would be pointless to break one of them as there's so many mirrors in this domain. I've always thought Haku's original jutsu was one of the coolest jutsus in Naruto, no pun intended. So if this hypothetical were to be pulled off in some alternate universe, I would be on the edge of my seat. We'll call this one Domain Expansion Mirror Dimension. Get it? Cause like the mirrors, mirror dimension. Okay, next one. Let's talk about Rock Lee. Actually, he just wouldn't have one. Next, let's talk about Shikamaru. The Nara clan's signature jutsu revolves around shadow manipulation. Their key jutsu, the shadow imitation technique, lets them extend their shadows to their target, immobilizing them. It's how Shikamaru was able to give that one guy permanent CTE. Speaking of CTE, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs, that was a really good Super Bowl. Shikamaru's technique would be similar to Megami's Chimera Shadow Garden. While Potential Man's domain expansion was an impromptu unfinished domain, if Shikamaru were to conjure his domain, it would legit just be pitch black, as his personal space would be a materialization of his shadow technique, and there would be one tiny hole in the sky just to have some light. I don't think you can have shadows without light, just a technical aspect. And then since his opponents can't see the space that's around them, he then just puts random couches and ottomans across the environment so his enemies are constantly stubbing their toes. No? Alright, we'll scratch that idea. But Shikamaru's shadows would stretch and morph into an all-encompassing darkness, creating a suffocating environment for his opponents. Unlike his regular jutsu, his domain wouldn't just immobilize. The curse technique amplification would probably amplify the jutsu so much that the shadow strangle jutsu just ends up crushing bones. You know, JJK is so dark, and compared to Naruto has so much more darker undertones. When I'm bringing these curse technique rules into the Naruto verse, it just sounds like I'm making Mortal Kombat finishers, bro. We'll call Shikamaru's technique Domain Expansion Breathless Eclipse. Come on. That's cool. But since Shikamaru is so smart and considers every battle a drag, he'd probably think of a plan to defeat his enemy before it even got to the point of him awakening a domain expansion. Okay, last one for this video, and this might be an unexpected pick to you guys, but Tintin. If you forgot what she does because of how little screen time she gets, don't worry, I got you. Tintin specializes in her weaponry, particularly in her proficiency in using various ninja tools like scrolls and kunai. Tintin's domain expansion would be the Adobe Premiere Pro cut tool. Instead of cutting her enemies physically or spiritually, her domain expansion would cut the screen time of her enemy exponentially until they didn't have any screen time at all, essentially causing their existence in the timeline to disappear. We'll call this one Domain Expansion Kishimoto Hates His Female Characters. And low-key, this domain expansion is the most powerful of all. That's all for this video. Let me know if I should do other Naruto characters or other anime in general for coming up with these domain expansions. If you haven't already, go ahead and sub and become a medic today. We're at 18K bars. I'm Tyler Relief. Peace out.